Okay, so this is episode 5, The King of Omashu. Aang and the gang make their way to the great Earth Kingdom city of Omashu, not surprisingly because Aang wants to ride something, and in this case, it's not an animal, but it's the city's mail system. In this city, there's a mail system which uses airbending, earthbending to get the carts of mail all the way to the upper levels of the city, and then uses concrete chutes to slide all the way down to the various levels they go across. And not surprisingly, this makes for a very fun roller coaster type of ride. First of all, the sequence they do this was a lot of fun, and not surprisingly, when a lot of the video games based on the show came out around this time, that was often a level you could play. You could decide where to go, you had to avoid obstacles. It's just one of those things that's honestly, it's a great sequence even nowadays, although sometimes the timing on the animation is just a little off. It's a little slow, but it's a great scene. But anyway, they come to Omashu to ride the mail cart, but in doing so, they cause a lot of damage. They're arrested and they're taken to the king of Omashu, who is a little bit of a nutball. He's a bit of a nutball, and instead of punishing them, he throws them a feast. But after discovering Aang is the Avatar, he imprisons Katara and Sokka and challenges Aang to 3 challenges, or else his friends are going to be encased in a creeping crystal that they're wearing. So Aang has to complete these challenges, which often employ tactics requiring you to think outside the box in order to prevent his friends from becoming, I guess, a nice piece of decoration in the king's office. Uh, Overall, as far as story goes, it's a decent episode, but it is a kind of a nice one to give you some hints as to how the overall world kind of functions. Omashu is a great city. It's built on a mountain in the middle of a valley, so it's kind of isolated, and it has multiple kind of mountainous tiers going all through the whole city. The best way I can describe it without a visual right now is if you've seen Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, it's a little bit like Minas Tirith. It's a bit bigger and it's a bit more complicated and more Asian themed, but it's kind of like a Minas Tirith sort of thing. I also like too how even though the Earth Kingdom, as we'll establish later, but I'll just sort of say now, it does have an overall hierarchy of royalty. Like there is the Earth King. Some places like Omashu exist more or less as like an independent city-state with its own governing king. So that was just kind of a nice little bit of world building. It also shows that despite 100 years of war with the Fire Nation, the war hasn't spread to all places, although there is suspicion. The episode opens with the guards denying entry to a cabbage merchant, which, if you know the show, you know who this is, but for those of you who don't, the cabbage merchant is debatably the most iconic side character to come from this show. He's a guy who is he's just trying to make his living selling cabbages, and for whatever reason, it's almost like he's like a Looney Tunes character. He's like he's Daffy Duck. Like, no matter what he tries, he just cannot win. Everyone is always destroying his cabbages, whether it's Team Avatar, this happens a lot, or government officials saying you can't sell cabbages here. It's very funny, very tragic, and if you've ever heard the meme sound, "My cabbages," that's that guy. It came from this episode. So, as far as the overall story, there's not a ton that was introduced here, again, aside from some little bits of world building, but we will come back to the city of Omashu later in this series, but it does introduce us to King Bumi, which you will hear me say this a lot about a lot of characters, but I friggin' love Bumi. He's this old, crazy coot, like he's got very little hair, he's got these big bags under his eyes, he's missing a few teeth, and he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like, he's always saying things that make no sense. But it turns out, without giving it away, it is all in secret service to a deeper message that has personal meaning to Aang. And if you know the show, you know what that is. If you don't, a bit of a secret, I'll keep it. But it does lead to kind of a nice surprise at the end if you're a first-time viewer. And it does lead to some simple but kind of creative ways in which Aang has to overcome some straightforward challenges. I will say, too, in keeping with the show's great designs, there's a scene where Aang has to rescue his friends from... No, not rescue his friends. He has to retrieve the king's pet named Flopsy, and he comes across a rabbit with some very long, floppy ears. Makes sense that rabbits have flop ears. Flopsy the rabbit. But what the actual pet is, the best way I can describe it, it's a giant warthog, gorilla, goat, rabbit. To interpret that any way you want, but it is a giant warthog, goat, gorilla, rabbit. And I love it, and I wish they were a real animal. A lot of the animals in the show, I wish they were real. That one, I could see a lot of rich people owning. That thing is kind of crazy. But aside from that, I don't have a ton more to say about this one. It's just a decent episode. It has a very fun opening sequence. It has a basic message about critical thinking, how sometimes you need to think like a mad genius in order to overcome things in life. Good, straightforward. Sorry, I don't have much else to say about it, though maybe you prefer the shorter runtime this time, but with that said, I'll see you in the next one, but till next time, onwards and upwards, my friends.